Welcome back to the Krown Crypto channel. Waking up for a little bit of a later Monday morning over here, as I did figure it was kind of a holiday scene as it is President's Day in the United States. So I suspected that market's going to be more or less ranging and rather quiet. So no live stream today, but I believe we'll be back on tomorrow, maybe the day after. We'll see how it goes. More importantly, though, we do have several things to be speaking about right now in the short-term timeframes. That is to follow up on yesterday's long-term analysis, which was really focused on the next couple weeks or I'd say like next 2 to 3 weeks to come. However, within the shorter term timeframes right now, we are starting to see one of those ideas emerge that we were speaking about after the test to the downside, now producing a bit of a short-term bounce. So I want to talk about the next sort of things to be expecting on this bounce and what would actually turn this bounce into not just a bounce, but potentially a bear trap with targets, much higher. Until then, however, pressure does remain to the downside, obviously, and we will swing back into the Krown trading application a little bit later into this analysis. As always, I want to let you know that the premium features are now live, which does mean, because I get this question the most often, that yes, the Jewel Light does come with this as well as many other things as well. So at some point, I'll release a video this week kind of depicting all of the different, all of the features of it, of which you can actually just find right here for yourself. But videos typically help with that, and we'll save that for a little bit later. Anyways, with that said, I think it's time to get into the analysis of the day. So let's go in right on over here. I actually want to start it off with CME today, simply because CME does typically get the better analysis on Monday and Tuesday, especially after that, CME and spot price action typically come into parity with each other. But as you can see right here, we did open up on a little bit of a gap down, as we did say was likely yesterday, and now popping back up to fulfill the gap at around mid $39,000 territory. That's kind of where Bitcoin is right now, obviously. And when we do look at this, from a range perspective, it's actually still very much the same as what we saw before in this case, which I'll go back to the same chart that we were looking at and working off of yesterday, of which we did say a move, or I did say a move, likely down somewhere around low 37 to upper 36. We didn't quite get that far down, so I was certainly wrong about that. Close enough in this case, however, and I would say that this is more or less fulfilled. Can Bitcoin come back down and swipe it one more time, give an official test in that region? Yes, absolutely, but I am more or less looking for a bounce of this region, not dependent upon whether it goes lower or not. So that's kind of the main message that I really want to be having on a day like today. Could it happen after fulfilling the gap and then maybe come back down for another swipe and then pop back up, or does Bitcoin push on through here? Either one of those is fine. The general ranges, however, is what I really want to be focusing this analysis on. So where do things start to switch around here into potentially a trap situation? Well, and when I say a bear trap situation, well, similar to what we saw before on this little short-term bear trap over here, after slightly printing a lower low and then popping back up and getting major continuation. I mean, relevant to this time frame being a 4-hour, obviously. The same area in this case right here would be essentially, as I do pull up my little Fibonacci retracements, and let's do this from high to low in this case, would be above, or let me actually get this properly, and let me actually do this on closing basis. There we go, and there we go as well. Okay, so I would essentially be looking at no less than about 42,000 and change right there. I'd even say 42,000 would probably be good enough for me on a medium-term time frame closure. If Bitcoin does start to close back above there, that'd be a really good indication that we are going to see an actual bear trap emerge with full confirmation and targets up towards probably shallow 50s over time, with any sort of a closure above a 4-hour closure in this case, above $45,000 specifically. So that is kind of what I'm looking at right now. Until then, on this next bounce, I would exercise caution, especially as long as Bitcoin is below $42,000, with specific interest on both the 40,400 level and then the 41,300 level right here. Those two ones hold specific interest for me right now. And as long as Bitcoin's below there, it is still just another lower high, and that is technically where you do look for on your lower high after a bit of a nice bouncy bounce. But please do understand that if Bitcoin does get above this region right here, the probabilities that this is going to be a bear trap increase dramatically, actually. So let's go look at some of the supporting evidence over here that could play alongside with that, and we're going to be referencing our shorter term time frame stochastic momentum oscillator, of which I will bring up over here we'll actually just start on the short term time frames right now, of which we do see it really wouldn't take too much to get Bitcoin on a bit of a bounce, continuation of this bounce. Now we do see that 4-hour stochastic momentum momentum is going to be headed to the north side as long as Bitcoin is closing above 39,169 on the 4 hour. So that is, well, for right now, good, I suppose. Bitcoin's trading about $150 above there, which is not much. But what makes me feel a lot more confident about this for the short term is that we see the lower term time frames underneath the 4 hour building upon that. So the 2 hour right here is heading up as long as Bitcoin's closing above 38,800, and the hourly is loading. There we go. It's heading up as long as Bitcoin's above 38,950 or so. Then we switch into the medium term timeframes and see if these line up with any more of our continuation pivots, of which actually I didn't even speak about that, did I? The continuation pivot for the short term would be above 40,450 actually. But 6 hour would turn up above 38,900, so that's actually quite good. 12 hour is way over here. That one won't be turning up anytime soon until Bitcoin closes above 42,780. You can see that it's starting to inch its way into the critical zone right here. And what I would identify alongside that is that we actually have a bit of a trend line coming in from our last few lows. Let's actually judge how these last few lows have done. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put some vertical lines on them. Boom, 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 and potentially boom yet again, although we don't have it. And this one won't get another closure until about 3 hours and 9 minutes and 3 seconds. But you can see that all of these were, decent lows for some decent bounces, not obviously reversals, except for this one right here. But, good bounce areas nonetheless for, at least a medium term time frame bounce. In this case, that probably does get Bitcoin's move back up into the shallow $40,000 territory. If that condition is met. So what we'd be looking for, one, is for the next closure to come down and test around this trend line. And then two, I'd be looking for whatever this number prints next, which right now, obviously we cannot know. There's no way to know that until we get the full on closure with that. But I'd imagine it's going to be significantly lower than where we're at right now. Why do I say that? Because we do have a small insight as to what it's likely to be by looking at spot price action. And you can see on spot price action, it's actually already turning up. And that will be consistent as long as Bitcoin's above 38,500. Again, I do default to CME on Monday especially, but I think that is more on the supporting side for, we're probably in the midst of a bounce right now. The question is, does Bitcoin play out one more downside move around that 618 Fibonacci retracement right there before playing out the bounce or not? I'm kind of neutral to that. I would have liked for it to have gone to exactly my targets there. But hey, close enough is close enough, and I'm not, obviously, I'm not perfect, and I'm not looking to be perfect in a game like this. Just needs to be good enough. Anyways, looking at the daily, we also see daily stochastic momentum on spot price action is going to be coming all the way down to the critical zone here, not turning up anytime soon. To be fair, assuming that Bitcoin doesn't close above 44,450 today. But as we defined earlier, if it were to close above that region, in the next few days on a bounce, that wouldn't just start to have range resolutions above our high probability bear trap region, but that would start to turn daily stochastic momentum back onto the upside alongside, a short-term range resolution and medium-term time frame range resolution. So all of these things work together. For reference on CME, this one's still coming down pretty damn hard, but you'll notice the number necessary to turn it back to the upside is significantly lower than what we see on spot price action. In fact, almost $2,000. That's 4250 versus 44, basically 400. So I would say that's pretty damn close. And that's certainly within the midst, certainly within the grasp. On top of that, I want to once again harken back to the data on the 5-day and the weekly, which I look for more long-term direction. That's Bitcoin on the 5-day is still showing upside momentum as long as we're above 36,300. Weekly is also showing fresh cross the upside. So we officially have seen the cross the upside on the weekly now, and will be remaining up as long as Bitcoin's above $35,000. So I want to now fit this into the generalized analysis that we've been making over the past 3 weeks here. The last couple of days have been a little bit shaky, at least for my own behalf, because looking a little bit lower right there. But hey, fair enough. That's trading, man. That's fucking trading. But at the end of the day, when we start to fit it into the global open interest narrative over here, we are starting to see this really crater. Coming off of that last 12, almost and a half billion read. Right now, currently at about 10.5 or so, maybe a little, about 10.5, I'd say. So ultimately, would I consider this a full-on reset just yet? No, certainly not. But we're getting very close to that first number that we set in as, kind of a what's it called? Kind of a a good healthy retracement on it, which was done over here on the notifications tab. You can of course do this yourself as well. There is a link in the description below. Just, I think you need to have an account, and then you can do your alerts. I actually have them streamed to my desktop as well, but I have open interest below 10 and then also below 8. Those are two major areas that I kind of consider as very important. On top of that, funding rates are still ever so slightly positive right here. So it does, again, that's kind of why I do think, really wouldn't take too much to get like a quick move like this, like boom, come back down, boom, then base, and then try for that upside move. But ultimately, this area right here, and kind of the main message that I want to be having is I don't think that Bitcoin's going to be trading below about whatever this area is right here. I guess it's more like in the mid $36,000 territory before first trying a nice little bouncy bounce. And then the question is, and what's going to be very, very important on this bounce is where does Bitcoin start to show weakness? If it shows weakness, especially below 42, okay, that's going to be at least a signal from myself to look for Bitcoin to come back down, very likely to the macro range lows. In this case, that's going to be, somewhere in the low $30,000 territory. If Bitcoin starts to trade above $42,000, that's where I start to look at that as saying, hey, no, this is very likely a bear trap, and we're very likely going to see $50,000 plus. Wouldn't even be surprised to see, mid 50s in like the month or two after that. Anyways. Is there anything else that I'm missing right now? We're 11 minutes into this video. Okay, so what would be good in validation in this case? And just, I guess, look for a massive creation of price action before anything else. I guess in this case, that would be below about 36,000 and what is this, 300? About 36,300 or so. Then at that point, I'd be looking for big catastrophic move to the downside to, again, the macro range lows between about $29,500 to $31,000 before anything else. Until then, this area right here, I think it's a little more likely to kind of grind it out, bounce, and then the real sort of clarity on the situation is what's going to happen over here. And just imagine that as well. Anytime that Bitcoin bounces $1,000, it goes down $1,000. The sentiment of this market gets so exaggerated, right? So if imagine Bitcoin bouncing up into the shallow $40,000 territory again, people are probably going to get pretty damn bullish. That'd be a good time to dump it. And vice versa for the downside as well. So as always, man, the Moon Boys and the Doom Boys, equally as insufferable, equally as typically wrong as well, and equally as fun to watch, to be quite honest with you. Sometimes I watch it for entertainment value alone, as it's just very interesting to see the sort of mental gymnastics that can be done in order to I guess kind of always come at like a very specific conclusion. It's like someone makes a video already with the answer in mind, rather than like trying to create, some sort of an actual setup, which is what I really hope to do on a channel like this. That's why I talk about validations and invalidations. And that's, well, at least in my experience, that's the only way that you can actually make a fucking living trading. So fair enough. Anyways, the fear and greed index over here would say that sentiment is already, pretty crushed, if you will, as we are basically in the extremely fearful zone yet again. What would that kind of align with? Kind of align with a little bit more on the, I suppose, bounce first narrative. Again, does not imply that we're going to have a bear trap just yet. Bear trap conditions are very, very specific. And this would actually be a good time to, to come back over here when we saw our last bear trap, essentially. And we did say that, hey, the second that Bitcoin starts to trade back above about, I think it was $37,500 or $38,000 right here, we're very likely going to see a bear trap, and those targets up to 41 and then subsequently 45 are going to be very much validated. And that's exactly what we saw right there. It took some patience, yes, but when you see something like this, that is potential. And we're kind of, it looks to me like we're kind of setting up for something relatively similar over here as well. So it's a potential, not confirmed until very specifically right here. As I get my painter's brush out, Bitcoin's back above about 42 or so. And closes like a medium-term time frame above there. Full-on confirmation is above 45. That's where targets up to $50,000 become relevant, and then mid-50s. And then after that, I honestly do think that Bitcoin would probably come back down around our lows again. To be honest with you, I mean, realistically, I think that this market is range bound at best for about a year, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But that's what seems to really. That's what really seems to get most people into bad positions, honestly. It's not these more trending markets, these more violently trending markets that go straight to the upside or the downside. It's more or less the sideways market seems to really do a lot of damage to the market participants, and that's typically what's needed in these sort of market cycles, which is kind of nasty, but hey, that is the name of the game at the end of the day. Anyways, I just want to kind of peruse around here for a second, as I haven't really done too much. Yeah, I haven't really spoken about too much on the higher term timeframes. Is there anything on the daily, perhaps? Maybe daily CME. No, not really getting it right here. I'd argue that we've already seen the hidden bearish evidence on the 2-day, and the daily played out that we identified. I think this was like 4 or 5 days ago, so it's like not really relevant right now. Yeah, I think I'm gonna probably stop it right there. Yeah, I think that's a good place to stop it. So short term, just Bitcoin come back down and maybe graze around this blue box territory one more time. Possible, maybe not. I don't have a strong opinion on that. My strong opinion is on Bitcoin very likely bouncing from this boxy area, whether it gets down there or not, again to the low $37,000 territory is fine. And then first things first, above 40,450, that's where things become a lot more interesting. I would be looking for a move somewhere between about 41.5 and 42,000 after that. However, as long as Bitcoin's below $42,000 on a medium or higher term time frame closing basis, I still do look at this as likely another lower high. And well, after a lower high is printed, then probably Bitcoin comes back down to the mid to low $30,000 territories for, its full on move. If Bitcoin starts to close above about $42,000, even on a medium term time frame, that's when I say the probabilities of a bear trap really start to increase, and full on confirmation is above $45,000. And then, well, targets probably into the, shallow $50,000 territory. Higher term time frame momentum oscillators would very likely align with that, as we see weekly stochastic momentum turn to the upside for the first time basically since July of last year, which was, well, that was the bear trap from basically $30,000 to our current ultimate at $69,000. Time before that was actually a bit of a pretty damn good move over here in December 2019, but ultimately did fail into the Rona dump. So you might look at that as a black swan or not, I don't know. But hey, it is in there obviously. And on the 5-day, kind of same thing as well. It is still to the upside. However, will turn down, and this would be a devastating blow if it were to happen below 36,300 or so. But here's the thing, with the daily and 12-hour kind of looking to turn up, I would say relatively soon, assuming Bitcoin just doesn't completely shit the bed below, its current levels. Well, these will naturally start to find ground around these regions and flip around. So I thought that was rather interesting. Again, please be aware of where the validations and invalidations are right now. If I'm going down to the very low term timeframes, it does look like Bitcoin probably does give one more move, around the current lows. But the question is, what happens after that? So until we get that, I think it's best for me to, probably wrap up this video. Want to be wishing you well yet again. Take care and see you hopefully soon.